Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name's Kristina Kelman. I'm a senior lecturer at Queensland University of Technology and currently at the University of West London. Today I wanted to share some of my learning design initiatives that I believe are helping our students be better prepared for the music industry in which they're going to be walking into after graduation. I wanted to talk to you today about the student record label that we launched back in 2017. And I wanted to share with you specifically some of the work that I've been doing around creating a more interdisciplinary environment for students to work in. Vermilion Records is an Australian student-run record label established in 2017. It was developed as a way to expose students to music industry practice experientially through business. An interdisciplinary environment bringing together students from music, film, television, animation, design, business, marketing, journalism, drama, dance, event management, to develop, produce and promote emerging artists and to find innovative ways for artists to connect with their audiences. The student label has undergone rigorous consultation with students every semester since 2017, so it's part of a larger action research project. And we tweak and refine this model every semester to meet the changing needs of graduating students. Originally, Vermilion Records was started in that kind of traditional vein of the record label with marketing, promotion, A&R, digital distribution and live events. The governance structure of Vermilion Records has always seen traditionally a student coordinator who oversees the whole project, team leaders who look after each division, and team members responsible for executing the label's goals. At the beginning of each semester, the students and I negotiate a basic set of KPIs. For example, there'll be 10 new artist releases, at least 5 performances, music video clips, live studio performances, promotion and release, and increasing the presence of Vermilion within Brisbane and building international engagement is one example of a set of KPIs developed. And the students then are given complete ownership to work out how they're going to meet those KPIs through team cooperation and collaboration, and some of our processual repertoire, as you can see here, the students instigating their own tracking and measuring documents, which are highly detailed and keep the students on task, but again, all kind of instigated and owned by the students. Assessment has changed over the course of these years. We're now sitting at a proposal of goals, objectives with a rationale, a portfolio demonstrating evidence of their professional and creative practice, and reflective essays, which is an authentic assessment because it's really giving the opportunity for students where their learning might be implicit to make that explicit. My background, just very quickly, is I've been a professional musician and educator for over 25 years. And in the early part of my career, I was always looking for a way to connect high school students with the world of the music industry, because it certainly is not embedded in high school curriculum. I eventually did a 4-year research project back in 2010 that saw a group of young musicians at the high school level developing their own music business, which became a highly successful enterprise in Brisbane, where students were creating opportunities for young audiences and young musicians across Brisbane through running a live booking agency, a venue, music festivals, and eventually a youth music industry conference called Little Big Sound, which they invented and developed and executed, and it still runs today. I tracked this learning over a period of over about 4 years and distilled that into a set of design principles for what I believed would develop the entrepreneurial mindset. If you'd like to know more about that, you can read that in my book, Entrepreneurial Music Education. I'm not here to talk so much about the entrepreneurial development. As you can see in my model, was informed by communities of practice, learner identities over time by Wenger, and concepts of social capital, engaging with strong and weak ties and mobilizing that capital over time to develop entrepreneurial competency. Lately, my thinking has been more around establishing that as the ground or the framework for learning skills and knowledge, but also by creating an interdisciplinary environment to build interdisciplinary skills that address three basic needs, psychological basic needs: relatedness, competence, autonomy, which eventually leads to self-motivation, self-actualization, well-being, growth, optimal functioning. So a little bit about the background of where things are going, and my PowerPoint does not want to change here for some reason. Excuse me while I sort that out. There we go. Obviously the decline of the music industry in the early 2000s, record sales plummeted and the record label model was forced to restructure and began to develop new business models. The 360 deal was one of those deals, where they began a multiple rights deal where obviously record labels were trying to now recoup revenue from every aspect of the artist's career: live, merchandise, sponsorships, etc. A great example of this was a multiple rights strategy employed in 2009, 2010, where BMG were looking to reposition the Beatles into the 21st century. Combined efforts from artists and developers would bring the Beatles back through video games, Trivial Pursuit, new apparel, guitar straps, journals, address books, keychains, baby strollers, CD shelves sold in hardware store chains across America. The licensing possibilities were endless. All of these ideas offered by many and by working across a range of disciplines. However, the 360 deal was also criticised for many reasons. Labels were taking a portion of income from categories that have always belonged exclusively to the artist. But secondly, because all of these new skilled areas had to be outsourced, and artists were frustrated that labels might be masters at moving records, but doesn't mean that they're masters at everything else. The music industry constantly responding to technological and entrepreneurial developments. Anderson suggests there's no dominant model any longer, and what resonates is an emphasis on being social to connect with, cultivate and quantify the types of relationships with fan communities. And Blumenthal 2010 inspired my thinking around how to push the student record label in new directions, reminding us that if you offer consumers new ways to interact with the music they love, they'll have new reason to play. And this is the key that allows artists and labels to integrate new types of products like video games or online concerts. Okay, so my interventions were the record label had to take a range of students across the creative industries, as I mentioned at the start of my presentation. It was a good problem for students to solve. How are they going to work together? How could they pool their expertise for one goal of creating greater connection between the fans and the artists? So as I mentioned, this is from a larger action-based research project. I'm just giving you one little tiny piece of the pie. Student voices highlighted through focus groups and reflective journals, data collected at the end of each semester and thematically analysed to refine the design, assessment and infrastructure of the label. So a few findings through my interviews. This is one creative product that came out of these new interdisciplinary models, actually using working with dancers to give music in new ways. So that's just a very small example there. And another product that came out of that was working in the studio with filmmakers to have an intimate snapshot of what musicians are doing inside the studio. So just again, giving students the opportunity to work across disciplines, to think of new ways in which they could potentially engage audiences and respond to their fans' needs. In terms of learning across disciplines, here's one example of where a student has talked about the opportunity to be encouraged to fly. The challenges, though, are that when you're forced into these situations, you're going to hit a lot of walls, and giving the students the opportunity to ideate
10 minutes.
Thank you. So as you can see here, the student has talked a lot about about how I guess about the fact that it is challenging, but there are those opportunities to ideate and to solve problems. Autonomy and competence. I like this quote where the student talks about the motivation that comes from ownership, not doing a ticker box assessment, having real responsibilities, real obligations, real relationships, because nobody wants to let anybody else down. I think I definitely found, as the student says, throughout my journey, that I definitely have a passion for music. And even though I don't play music, it definitely inspired me to work hard within groups and learning so much from artists and the way that they convey themselves and their work and their ethic. And I think that's driving. So that's giving us, the student, an opportunity to kind of relate themselves in terms of how things are approached in other disciplines, and found that that was a really driving or motivating force. Learning across disciplines and gaining different perspectives. This music student, I was used to looking after my music, and as soon as I started this, I started to think of, wow, other people think differently to me, and like just being able to communicate with everybody to get things done, from everybody from other disciplines as well. Like, it's really good to kind of see how things work within a record label and how we can help and give things to the artists that they need. Learning to communicate across disciplines. One thing this student found working as an artist manager was that we struggled to set up briefs because we don't do graphic design, we don't know what we want, and we don't really have an idea of the conception. So it's always last minute. So having someone attached to the team means more transparent communication will happen, and it's easier. And that certainly was something that improved when we stopped outsourcing and we brought these specialist disciplines into our team. The communication was much better. Graphic designers and artists were complaining of music students not understanding the requirements of a brief and how to communicate that, and how to do that in a timely manner. Making connections for the future. Some students had never met before, have set up a company outside just before they've graduated. There's 4 of us renting this big warehouse space. We pay $250 each a month. We've just painted a big mural on the main wall. James has joined us. Now we have a recording studio space. We have our first clients. We'll be doing the graphic design, the photos, the music video, and the artwork. And for me, that's one of the ultimate goals of this, is that through those connections that they've made, and not even realizing that if they joined forces, they're potentially setting themselves up for their careers. So some conclusions. Well, for me personally, always focused on the skills and knowledge. What I've really kind of started to think about is that learning design through interdisciplinarity can support those 3 basic psychological needs: relatedness, competence, and autonomy. According to self-determination theory, if these 3 needs are met, it will lead to psychological well-being, growth, optimal functioning, intrinsic motivation, and self-actualization, leading to a healthy student record label that continues to grow and innovate rather than becoming stagnant and a hostage to itself. And the context is relevant to the music industry they will inhabit, equipped with the relevant interdisciplinary skills needed to continually innovate ways for audiences to connect with artists and their music. Thank you.
Well done, Kristina. That's amazing. That's a lot of work, and you clearly do not sleep. So that's extraordinary. Well done. That's fantastic. A fantastic example of student agency. I'll open to the floor. I have questions, but does anyone have a question for Kristina? You can use the hand up function or grab the microphone.
I'm so sorry, I rushed that, and I hope it makes
No, it's all good. Eden has a question.
Hi, Eden.
Hello. Thank you so much for that presentation. I really enjoyed hearing about it. Something I've been beginning to learn just in my first year of university is how important it is to sort of work across disciplines And I'm wondering, within the framework of the Vermilion, is it exclusively like a QUT sort of related project or in Brisbane, or is it like open to all sorts of different youth musicians and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so unlike a lot of other student record labels around the world, we do take a roster of musicians from outside of the university. While we have musicians inside the university, we also make sure that we're catering to our local community. We also have been establishing an international student network. So we now have a startup committee of student representatives from 5 record labels around the world who are talking about cross-promotion, collaboration opportunities for students to one student over in America might put a top line down on one of our electronic producer tracks, that kind of thing. Cross promotion of music, obviously, and just meeting to discuss different ways in which students can innovate new models to make sure that music reaches audiences in the way that they want to be reached.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Matt's got a question as well.
Hey, Matt, in the UK.
Stay there. Yeah, thanks for a great presentation. I think University of Liverpool set up a record label last year, so following the model, and I did something similar at LIPA about 15 years ago. I was just wondering, from a rights point of view, how you manage that and how the challenges that you have with dealing from a top-down level at the university level, and then bottom up from a student point of view. It seems to be the most intractable problem always when doing these types of projects.
Yes, it's really complex. We've done multiple iterations of agreements between record label, university, and students. We have a very user-friendly agreement. So the students, the musicians are licensing their work to the record label for a period of 1 year, in which they receive all of any monetary any revenue, they get it back. So it's just we need this 1 year, because otherwise our students don't have full opportunity to exploit that track, and as a result learn from that. So totally user friendly. The contract is just in place to ensure that the musicians do let us work with that track for a year. But there are also other agreements that are coming in from the visual artists and from the choreographers. So there's so many layers to it, but because everything is done through the model of through the lens of learning and teaching at the university, we can get around those things. So we're not a commercial venture at all. And I know a lot of universities would like to set it up like that, but we decided learning and teaching was the priority, and so it would not be a commercial venture.
Yeah, very similar. Thanks.
No, that's great. It's good on you, Matt, because that was my question. I have a money ? Copyright ? Royalties ? And uni red tape ? as well. So I'm so glad you asked that question.
And I would just like to just quickly offer before I finish that we've been very privileged with the setup of this, in that in our 3rd year, film, dance, drama, we're all timetabled at exactly the same time. So that allows this interdisciplinarity to happen in an official timetabled space.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. That's a luxury, because that was my next question of just, it's like multiple cat herding and, and dogs and birds. And,
Exactly.
Putting that together. No, that's brilliant.
Well, that's only been able to just happen in the last couple of years, but we've started a long time ago, and it's been a slow burn. So we're getting there.
Oh, best kind. That's great. A quick question, actually. How much do you have to step in?
It started with me having quite a lot of responsibility in there, and it's gotten to a point now where it's so self-sustaining that I'm really just that guide on the side, kind of just intervening when I need to, dealing with any issues that come up. However, the students also have their own team contracts, so that they understand the levels of reporting, and they have levels of reporting so that they know when it gets to a certain level, it comes to me, but they actually know within their own organization the channels of communication and management. So it runs very professionally. It's only really getting to that point now because that process and that repertoire has been has been refined so many times. As I said, a larger action research project that's really enabled this to become self-sustaining.
Yeah, well done. Good on you, Kristina. That's just fantastic. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. We've gained a lot from that, and yeah, you'll be our go-to person when if and when we start up something similar. So thank you so much. Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful.